Okay, all right, I think we'll get started. So, yeah, welcome everyone to this webinar today. I'm Ollie. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer here at Springpod, and today I'll be your host for the session. We're going to dive into a topic that couldn't be more relevant: how Gen Z and even Gen Alpha are making decisions about their future. The conversation is grounded based on a brand new 2025 careers report, which has been co-created by Springpod and also the brilliant team over at Amberjack. And it's not just another what Gen Z wants think piece, it's data-led deep dive informed by over 1,000 young people aged 13 to 21 across the UK, including students from underrepresented backgrounds, those receiving free school meals, care experienced young people, and even those who are neurodivergent as well. If you haven't already seen the report, you'll receive a full copy after the webinar, so there's no need to take notes. And with that, let's introduce our fantastic panelists for today. So if we can maybe start with you, Rob, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. Hi, everyone. My name's Rob. I work in the new business team over here at Amberjack, and I'll be taking you through some of the key points that we've pulled out from the report, and hopefully giving you a couple more insights around what you could do to help some of these prospective candidates going forward.
Thanks, Rob. Matt?
Thanks, Ollie. Hi everyone. My name's Matt Jones. I'm a career consultant and educator at University of Liverpool, and hopefully we'll be able to supplement and give some context around some of the points that we'll talk about today in relation to the student population at University of Liverpool.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. And Sue?
Hi, I'm Sue. I am the head of attraction here at Amberjack, and hopefully I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how you can take some of the data and implement it quite effectively into some of your campaigns.
Thanks, Sue. And Roman?
Hi, I'm Roman, and I'm a master's student studying at Aston University.
That's great. Thanks a lot. So if you do have any questions, there will be time at the end for Q&A. Please use the live chat rather than the Q&A functionality, just so that we can get those questions come through to the panelists. And let's get started. I'll hand over to Rob, who's going to take us through the report.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ollie. So yeah, just to start off with a quick high-level overview of exactly who was surveyed. So just over 1,100 responses. As you can see from all levels of Gen Alpha and Gen Z. No Gen Betas just yet, but give it a couple of years and they'll also be with us. A really good gender split. And then, as you can see, quite an interesting spread of inclusion factors there, which gave some much more interesting and deep dive insight into what they're experiencing. And what we really kind of came across with, especially when you go into the intersectionality of the data, was that it probably highlighted the need for much more tailored insights from your outbound comms and to meet those intersectional needs of people. And I'll be honest, some of the results are probably quite disappointing, but it's always good to know now, so you can start planning what your responses would look like. So in terms of asking these young respondents, how do you feel about your future career? As you can see, nearly 70% of them said that they saw it as a source of stress in their lives, trying to figure out what they were going to do. Much higher amongst female respondents, and then again even higher amongst respondents with neurodivergent and on free school meals. So perhaps this is an opportunity to position yourself as part of the solution, offering some more positive language, giving some more insights into what you offer, and how you can take away some of that stress from planning for a future career that these young people are feeling. And that's probably the opportunity there. In terms of what was influencing their future career choice, really no surprise here that financials were top of the list. So salary being the highest factor, again, slightly less than last year. Cost of living, which is obviously affecting everyone coming up there, but AI becoming quite an important topic now in terms of are you savvy to it? Are you open to the use of it? With Gen Z and Gen A, AI is becoming just a part of way of life. People in my generation would maybe say, I'll go and Google it. People from Gen Z will say, maybe I'll go and chat GPT it and have a conversation where I'm at. So something to really look into there. But the key takeaway from this is candidates are looking for programs to be much more explicit around what financial support they offer both during the application and assessment period and also once they are onboarding and starting with your program. So don't be afraid to go out there and tell people what your salary is. Don't hide it behind any job adverts. The when and how candidates research one, I found this particularly interesting. It's probably no surprise that the most connected generation are spending more time online researching, but they're starting younger and younger, under the age of 13, and still doing their research and getting to know what could possibly be their future ambitions, and then probably being a lot more open to what they could go in and do, and exploring much more options. Again, though, when you go into some of the more deep dive data, people like people who are acting as carers, we see a lot more activity needed there to help meet their needs. And it's something that we really kind of would ask you to take away from this is to focus on that. There's some real disparities, especially around applicants who are on free school meals, who maybe need that extra little bit of help to get going. What they've kind of told us is maybe you should consider offering more step-by-step advice and a greater clarity over what your end-to-end process looks like, because they like to have a much more structured approach to it, and can work in that manner. And then in terms of how much time they're spent researching, as you can see there, about an hour, give or take, per week, researching their future careers. Some people spend much longer on that. But then again, free school meal students reporting that they spend a lot less time on that through a lot of different factors, but maybe it's one where they're just not being encouraged by various role models, which we'll get onto in a moment, to go out and research what their future career looks like. So working on some more targeted approaches to get to those candidates and to show them what you can offer would be really great. And then this one I found really super interesting, that the only pretty much the only area or channel which is seeing an increase in use is LinkedIn. And I think that reflects that maybe this generation are a little bit more savvy around how LinkedIn works and how they can gain attention. I'm sure a lot of you, like me, get connection requests from students looking to get a leg up, get some more insight, get some more info. And I think that's really, really interesting, because when I was leaving school, going to college, looking at my future career, I don't think I would have been brave enough to reach out to people. But now, because they're a much more digitally savvy generation, dropping into someone's DMs, not really a problem. Again, no, obviously all the traditional routes of Google searches and company websites and schools help still being used, but the slight drop in schools using schools as a channel probably responds to the next graph, which is what access do you have to careers guidance? And nearly 70% are only getting careers advice once a term or less. I found this one particularly shocking. I remember when I was at school, I had some crazy dreams. I wanted to go to America and be a film director. It was met with pretty stony silence in my careers office, as you can imagine. Politely asked to leave the room, but there just wasn't really that availability or insight. And I guess I'm talking 20 years later, which probably makes me sound a little bit older than I want to be. But if that's still not changing, that's a real worry for me. So where can we put some more provisions into school to help out and create some more long string programs that maybe aren't going to see come to fruition for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, but they will be worth it in the long term. And again, this kind of really just compounds the systemic disadvantages that some of these candidates and respondents are facing when they're looking to access their future career. And then looking at the last one, how important are role models? So 40% said they don't have a role model. 53% of free school meal respondents said they don't have a role model. Really high amongst females as well. That's worrying, especially because this is the show me, don't tell me generation. So think about what your company could do to reach out, maybe with some short form video content, highlight role models within your organization. Don't just say that you're a really ethnically diverse workplace. Show them ethnically diverse people in your organization, what you've done to support them, how they're doing great, and how they can help these respondents and become their role model, something that they can really look up to and help them in their future career search. And with that, I will hand back to Ollie for the panel discussion.
That was great. Some really interesting insights there. So let's dive into the panel. So first, Roman, let's start with you. 69% of respondents say that they're thinking about their career is causing stress, and that's pretty worrying. So it'd be good to understand a bit more about, from your perspective, what students are feeling around this. So it'd be good to hear from you.
Yeah, basically, well, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to plan my future. And I think when I have research jobs in the past, I find myself not being online for too long because I can't even really explain why or how. It just does, because I know that, like, you work a lot in your life, and I think I don't want to be stuck in a job where I am coming home thinking, don't like this job, I don't like doing this. I know that I want to set myself up with the foundation to be able to, climb up the ranks and not feel like I'm moving from one job to another, because, like, I do identify as neurodivergent as well. That's just another stress that I don't want to find myself in, really. And I think a lot of that stress as well does come from when job descriptions say that they have a fast-paced environment. That instantly puts me off a job, because I think the way my mind works can't really deal with that. I mean, maybe that's bad to say, but I think kind of just saying it up front in a way just wouldn't help someone like me, because just ease into it in a way instead of just bluntly saying, can you work in a fast pace? Are you a leader? Are you this? Are you that? It's like, at 22 years old, do I know if I'm a leader? Not necessarily. So I think I understand being honest and, wanting to have clarity, but I think there's a way to ease it in as well.
Interesting, yeah. So the terminology used in job descriptions is critical, I guess, really. So that's really interesting insight. And Matt, it'd be great to understand a bit more from students at University of Liverpool. Are there any other pressures which are becoming more prominent at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Ruben and her observations that they're coming through from our students as well at University of Liverpool. And I think wording is a big one. I think often we know from a business perspective, job descriptions go through several layers of people to get approved, and I think it's quite a long process to do that. But I think a little bit more time could be spent considering language that's used. So one in particular that I wrote down as Ruben was speaking was sort of 2 years experience, as often is included in person specifications, and it really puts a lot of graduates off roles if they can't identify they've got 2 years experience. And I think one thing that sort of some advice that I give to graduates is that try to have a think about, in the loosest sense, what 2 years experience might mean to that employer. What do they mean when they say 2 years experience? Do they mean 2 years experience, or do they mean an individual who is a self-starter, who's motivated, who's got some work experience under their belt, who is happy to learn on the job and be curious? And if you're that person, feel free to put yourself forward for that. The worst thing can happen is the employer comes back and says, oh no, we did want 2 years experience, but actually they might see something in your experience that aligns with what their expectations were. So I think wording and clarity in job descriptions and person specifications is really important. So I'd support Ruben's points, but also sadly I wasn't particularly surprised by salary and cost of living ranking very highly in sort of students' considerations. I think because of the cost of living crisis, we've found that University of Liverpool students, as students will be across the UK, are finding it more necessary to work part-time alongside study to support them during study. And I think with that, students are then, because they are needing to work part-time, are then having to make decisions about how they spend their time outside of that. So if they, for example, attend that lecture, or do they attend that industry panel, or do they apply for that particular summer internship when they could pick up a shift at their part-time job that they need to then support themselves during study. So I think students are now choosing what to engage with and how they spend their quite finite amount of time at university as well, which adds an extra layer of complexity for them. But of course also for careers teams and academic colleagues as well, to try and make sure that students don't feel like they're missing out on that content as well. And I suppose pertaining to cost of living crisis, one other thing as well that is clear is it affects geographical mobility. So for example, with graduate schemes that our employers will offer, the possibility and ability for graduates to then move across different areas of the country is hampered by the cost of living crisis and the cost of moving from either from home or from where they go to university, and then making that move to a new location for a job that might align with them and their career aspirations, but actually is difficult to achieve because of that cost of living crisis as well. And generally, I won't go on for too much, but sort of balancing stresses and pressures as well. So financial stress alongside personal, professional, academic commitments, a tough job market, and competition for roles. And what I would say as well, and I'm glad in some ways that it came up, is around AI as a consideration. And I think one of the challenges at the moment, being in a careers team and being able to observe both sides from an academic perspective and a professional perspective, we acknowledge there is an appetite for effective prompt engineering and being able to use generative AI and feel confident in using the tools that are there. But equally, there is some resistance from universities to implement the use of generative AI because it's linked to cheating and so on. So it's a really interesting space between the two, where we know that the value of using tools like generative AI, we know that there is an expectation from many employers that graduates are able to use generative AI tools or AI-driven platforms, but in terms of application in academia and in academic context, there is some disparity there across the two. And I don't know the right answer with that. I think what we've got is so with Gen Z, we've got digital natives who've only known these technologies versus processes that are set by universities, for example, where the majority of staff are digital immigrants compared to digital natives, and actually sometimes it's difficult to align those expectations, so that can be difficult for students as well.
Thanks, Matt. And then, so yeah, you obviously work with a wide range of employers. Are you seeing any examples of proactive work that helps students relieve the pressure of stress? And yeah, what could employers do more of, really?
I think from an employer point of view, it sort of falls into two buckets. There's the activity that you might do during the attraction period as you're trying to find candidates that might be interested in your schemes and programs, but obviously also once they're in the application process. The overriding factor would be consider both communication and being transparent in your communication. So I think Ruman made some interesting points around adverts, text, copy, content, and I know that was backed up by Matt as well. We use tools like Textio to remove social bias. It still requires human intervention, it still requires review, and you need to be mindful of that, but that's, you know, the profession that we're in. I think making that information available to be freely searched by candidates in their own time, which inevitably means digitally, is important. Making sure that you've got access to genuine grad or apprentice insights for explaining their own journey, showing that they are, you know, those peer-to-peer recommendations about how they've got where they're going, and the difficulties that they might have found along the way, I think help resonate with students that might be feeling a level of stress. And, you know, give detail about the requirements for the role, that inevitably there will be requirements for the role, but give a detail as to what they are and why they might be there. Make sure that you're explaining that process quite simply and thoroughly as well. You need to make sure that you're not assuming that everybody knows what competency-based questions are or what situational judgment tests are. This is the first time out for a lot of people. They won't know some of those things. So make sure that you're providing guides on how they can prepare at each stage of the process and what they can expect during that. And you know, at the end of the day, don't make your engagement 100% transactional or promotional. You're not just there to offer schemes and programs to individuals. I think you can take away some of the stresses for them by helping them with learning and upskilling events, offering advice booths, how to craft your LinkedIn profile, how to ace your video interview, things like that, that just show that you want to bring them along on the journey and try to take some of that stress away from the point of attraction all the way through your process as well.
Great, thanks. So yes, some really good ideas there. And moving on to, I guess the report showed heavily around the financial pressures. So Ruman, if you can maybe give us your overview here, like beyond a fair salary, what else do you think employers could be supporting early talent with from a financial point of view?
From a financial point of view, I'm not sure, to be honest, because usually, yeah, I do gravitate towards the salary kind of things, but maybe like Matt was saying, if people do need to relocate for a job, maybe some travel expenses, I would say, or like a free lunch. I think it probably depends on what the company kind of can offer, and I think if they can offer it, then they should offer it, because it's only going to help build like student loyalty, I suppose, in a way, because you're feeling that support as well, not just from a salary, but from other benefits around that too.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely agree. And Matt, obviously you covered that earlier around the support for relocation. Have you seen any other initiatives that employers are aiming at students that are stand out, or any case studies that you can pull out of? So you're on mute, Matt.
There's always one person that does it, and it's this time it's me. No, thank you, Ollie. So yeah, I have seen a few sort of schemes over the years that have run, particularly around the beginning of the UK cost of living crisis. So, for example, there was a scheme that where Unite Students linked with Aldi to offer food vouchers, and that was back in 2023. There are other sort of good work that's happened in terms of organisations offering more paid internships and mentorships as well can really help students and graduates during the cost of living crisis. I think as a career guidance practitioner of almost 10 years, like I've had a lot of conversations with students over the years, and I was thinking back to Rob's point there around a very similar experience of mine at school, where the old style career guidance, where if it was anything outside of the ring binder that was on the desk, and it was you couldn't have that conversation. And I would hope that we've sort of over the years in universities and in schools developed that quite a lot, and we would encourage students to have and hold a holistic view in terms of decision making. So who are they? What are their values? What drives them? What sort of work-life balance are they looking for? All the things like this, and then have this in mind when looking to an employer. But of course, that the cost of living makes that more difficult, because if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to make sure we've got those minimum needs met. So for example, we've got a salary, we've got a decent amount of wage coming in to pay the bills, to therefore go to work and so on. So actually it makes it much more difficult for graduates to consider those points, which I think are really valuable for a real positive experience at work, and to be really aligned with the employer that you're working for, and for your workforce to be aligned with your own values. I think that is so underrated. I think it's so important because it sort of leads to longer lasting relationships. But I think in the first instance, students are looking at salary, as Ruben mentioned, and the cost of living. And I think through paid internships, through paid mentorships, through accreditation of the living wage employers, and living wage for not only graduate as a minimum, but also for entry level roles as well. I think things like this, where employers can support their graduates, hopefully will make it easier for them to transition into your organisation as well. We know that relocation packages are a thing perhaps later in the career, so I'm not necessarily suggesting that for everybody as initially, but certainly is there a version or something that can be offered to graduates to make that transition from being a student to a member of your workforce a little bit easier as well. And as Ruben said, if it can be done, it should at least be considered and to be done as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. And Sue, when it comes to communication and communicating the support to students, what would you recommend in terms of messaging? Obviously, we've covered how important messaging is already on this, so it'd be good to hear your thoughts.
Well, my notes for this section of the discussion were once again around messaging and being transparent in what it is that you can offer and why. So use your job adverts as much as you can. Talk about not only the starting salaries, it's important to talk about what the progression expectations are, because not everybody can offer an entry point that is highly competitive. They might just be able to be simply competitive. So having a look at what that progression looks like and what the timelines are, so people can build in a little bit of future guidance as to where they're going to get to if they're successful, and how that sort of starts to look over, once they complete a 2-year program. By the time they roll off into this next banding, it will look like this. I think being really clear about what that looks like, and you can build all of that into your job adverts. Talk very openly about the benefits that you can offer. Relocation packages are not overly uncommon with those that recruit globally, not least because we all recognise some locations are a little bit easier to recruit into than others, and some have talent pools that are a little bit easier to access than others. So relocation bonuses are very helpful. Some organisations also look at welcome bonuses as well, so a sort of one-off payment and reward for that. But if you're looking at relocation bonuses, it obviously opens up your talent pool a little bit as well, so that's really helpful. And just be transparent about what costs might be involved in the recruitment process. So do you cover as expenses to attend assessment centres? Because that could be quite a significant turn off for people who do have that high level of concern around cost of living in general. And if, of course, if you can, it's better. If you're unable to, is there anything else that you can do to adjust your process, perhaps to suit their circumstances? So if you still want to see them, if they still are top talent, can you see them virtually? And can you bring them further along in the process? And if they're successful, then do that sort of final sign off and be able to reimburse them. So I think you've really got to be quite open to looking at different circumstances and remaining competitive. It's definitely one of the high factors for students in their consideration around roles.
Thanks. So yeah, really interesting. And I guess in the report, there was a big part of it covering around the content that students are looking to engage with. I think there's been a question in the chat which is broadly aligned to this as well. So Romana, it would be great to understand what content do you personally find engaging, and what channels are you using to find that content as well?
If I am being bluntly honest, I don't really interact with those sorts of videos because it feels like it's done like we'll just do it for the sake of doing it. It doesn't feel like companies do it because they do genuinely really enjoy doing it. It just feels a form of advertising, really. So I would like to hear employees in the workplace, I think, from all different levels. So maybe junior assistants up to, managers, to be able to, like I wrote on my notes here, a longitudinal study with an employee. So from when they first arrive at your company to working on their first project, and they do check-ins and they show that on whether that be TikTok or LinkedIn. It's not a snapshot of one employee's time in that life. You follow them through it, and you do feel then, there's so many probably soft skills from that you get from those videos, like, okay, so they are loyal with that company, they are aligned with that company's values, and they can show that, like, you can probably even see the confidence through the videos. They might come across as really shy, but then by the time they complete that project, there's a video and they're like, hi, I'm Robin, I can do this now, I can send emails, I can sit in this meeting and talk to 70 people. Like, I think for someone like me as well, that would be really encouraging as well, I think. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it does. That's great. And just in terms of I guess, where you're looking for roles, there's a question here from Elizabeth, which is around, are you looking directly on company websites, or are you going on job boards to find roles? Just in terms of where obviously you mentioned around the type of content you're interested in and what you would engage with, but that actually researching roles, where would you typically go?
Typically, probably LinkedIn.
Interesting.
But I don't spend a lot of time on that because of the stresses. I get scared seeing everyone like, guess who did this today, or guess who did this today, and I'm like, yeah, I'll shut that down because I'm not at that stage yet. So I think LinkedIn is a very fine line. I think I'm not sure how else to describe it other than it's a fine line.
Interesting. And so you've worked closely with clients on this as well from a strategy point of view for social media. How are employers using it, and what challenges are you seeing from it?
Social channels have genuinely grown quite a bit. I've been doing this a long time now, some 15 years, and I knew when social media was new, Facebook was new, and everybody was moving on to it. So times have changed. It has really grown for benefits in terms of students looking at their career research. Meta, Facebook and Instagram still deliver the best results for employees, but it's good to consider other channels like TikTok. I think you need to make clear what the type of content is that you're putting on TikTok. One of the biggest challenges for employers will be access to those kind of channels. As a corporate employer, quite often they won't hold a TikTok channel. There are other ways around that in terms of social targeting, but be really clear about what's an advert and what is designed to inform. And the best content that we see, so I've been doing this a long time. It's quite evident that sometimes students don't read through a full long advert. It's quite evident that they, don't have a look through all the FAQs on a website, and, they're making a lot of applications. They can't be expected to look in a lot of places. But I think the one thing that resonates more than anything else is through social channels, is having a look generally at day in the life formats. And I love Rumen's idea of, the longer journey and a series of videos. So, vodcasts and things like that are really helpful helpful, but really just giving realistic previews of what the job is like. They always seem to resonate best with students so that they can see themselves in those roles.
Amazing, thanks. So yeah, really interesting. And Matt, from a university's perspective, looking at online support, what is it? Online support working best? What's it in face to face like? Is that participation there at the minute? Yeah, it'd be good to understand a bit more around online versus face to face support from a career service point of view.
Yeah, definitely happy to speak around that. I actually consulted one of our content creators who works within our career service to get a bit of an indication of sort of her position as the person who basically controls our social channels as well, and to get a bit of an insight there to be able to share with you today. And actually, I was really surprised by her answers, because she was sort of talking about the fact that a little bit what Sue was referring to around often when you try to do some crossover content with employers or industry partners, there's quite a lot of red tape and difficulty and layers of complexity in producing that content. So what we try to do as a career service is use our Instagram and our TikTok, and we are on LinkedIn as well. But and LinkedIn, I say, was the most popular. So linking that to what Ruma mentioned earlier. But we use Instagram and TikTok really as a reminder that we're here, so providing bite-sized, digestible content that students and graduates can come back to, because often if they're on the bus or on the train or traveling around, they're not in a position to think about their CV or cover letter or applications there and then. So actually the ability to save something, I think, is really useful, and I think it leads into sort of the on-demand culture that we sort of have at the moment. I include myself in this, particularly around Amazon deliveries when we want things tomorrow or even yesterday. So it's offering the flexibility to combine things like in-person support. So, for example, one-to-one information, advice and guidance from a career service, and balancing that with perhaps online tools and resources. So Instagram and TikTok content. So if students and graduates do want to think about career or think about applying for your organisation outside the 9 to 5, there's still plenty of resources that are available. So I think balancing that sort of on-demand culture, I think ultimately is really important, and trying to meet students and graduates where they are. So what are they using LinkedIn for versus what are they using Instagram and TikTok for, and how can you tailor the content of that you're putting out on those platforms particularly, and recognizing that if students are interested or graduates are interested in a particular sector or field, they're probably connected, or look at the algorithm is feeding them content a bit like Day in Your Lives, as Sue mentioned there, or the longitudinal content that Ruman referred to as well. But yeah, so in terms of sort of support from us, the majority of support is face-to-face, so through our career studio, that one-to-one support, and also we do a lot in the curriculum as well, so that career education predominantly is in person. But I think it's really important to recognise that students and society in general have preferences around how they would like information, they would like to seek support. So I think thinking about that of how support is given and making sure that we're considering the preferences of those who want to seek our support as well. I think the final thing on this around sort of in-person online is around in-person networking. So for example, if organisations do come onto campus for a career fair or for an employer panel, just trying to the difficulty is trying to align sort of the value to the employer in terms of trying to meet as many students as possible whilst they're on campus, but also aligning that with the value to the student as well. So we might run a workshop on networking where we're sort of giving students hints and tips to networking, but it actually might result in a very short conversation because there are a lot of students who want to speak to that employer. So I think online versus in person, I don't know the answer and what is best, but I think a balanced approach of offering some online content supplemented by one-to-one support, but also utilising networking events where you might begin a discussion or begin a relationship in person that then can continue online as well, either informally through LinkedIn or formally through, for example, mentoring sessions as well. So I think balancing the two, online and in person, is really important.
Thanks, Matt. And just another question for you, really, because you touched upon the Career Studio a little bit, and I'm keen to understand a bit more around the mentoring side of things. But we're seeing, obviously, role models are really important, but a lot of students don't have access to them. How are you managing that at Liverpool, and how can employers help further with it as well?
That's a really good question, particularly around role models. And I think the first thing to mention is I think we've referred to it earlier in our discussion around mentors, and not just in your promotional materials mentioning that you're a diverse organization, but also showing that you are as well. And I think that sort of idea of you can't be what you can't see, it's really impactful for our students. We know from their feedback to see and hear from people who look like them in the workplace is really important and can be really powerful. And we recognize that not all students and graduates feel that they have role models, but what we try to do as a career service is to help students and graduates to see that actually role models take lots of different forms. So it could be, for example, their peers, academics, alumni, but equally it could be a guest speaker from an organisation. It could be an industry contact or somebody or an organisation who are doing great work in a particular field or a particular sector. So we try to support students to see who the role models might be and how they might go about connecting with them. And we do that in lots of different ways. So the first one, through our employer connections team at University of Liverpool, we'll try and broker opportunities for employers and our students and graduates to connect with each other. So that could be through the more traditional extracurricular events. So for example, careers fairs, industry panels and career treks, where we take students out to organisations to look at their offices and their headquarters to get a feel for what it's like to work in the workplace. But equally, because we're lucky at University of Liverpool that we've moved towards a much more embedded employability model, and a lot of our employability work and careers education is within the curriculum. It's also partnering with organisations on real world challenges, so tasking students to work in interdisciplinary teams to solve real world challenges that you're facing as an organisation, to give students that insight, not only into the organisation, but into you as an organisation as well. And also consulting employers in assessments as well. So when we're setting assessments, we want the assessment to be really authentic and connected to industry, involving employers at that stage as well. We also run a Live Uni mentor program that sort of brings together Liverpool Uni graduates with current students as well, to share their careers advice and stories. So that could be a really tangible way for graduates from your graduates who now work for you to then connect with the institutions that they studied at. And also looking at programs like we've got the EQ Plus program, which aims to basically create an inclusive and equitable environment where all students have equal access to resources such as mentors and such as industry information and insights as well. So there's a range of things that we do at University of Liverpool to try and bring together more closely employers and our students and graduates, and mentoring and role models is a really key part of that, is to build those relationships, and hopefully through that we see our students then applying for internships or opportunities with those employers because they spoke to them at a careers fair, or for example, once a student has sort of worked on a real world challenge with an employer, they're much more motivated to then apply to their employer. Or it could be a really nice funnel for employers to then look at the students who worked and have got a really good understanding of the organisation through work on a real world challenge, and then funneling those students into the organisation because they've worked with them previously. So we try lots of different ways to bridge that gap between students and role model and industry, but that hopefully gives a bit of a flavour into the kind of things that we're doing at Liverpool.
Yeah, some great initiatives that you guys run at Liverpool. That's great. Thanks for that, Matt. And just to finish, I guess, with you, Ruman, based on your experience, what's important when it comes to employers who are trying to connect connecting students with employers with the right role models? Be good to understand, from your perspective, what's important there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't even say that I have a role model myself, because I feel like I haven't seen someone who is Indian, neurodivergent like me. So in a way, I feel like I am my own role model at the minute. But I would probably say someone who is like-minded as well, and someone that also helps you to feel seen. So someone that does listen to my concerns and be like, what happens if I don't want to do this at this company? Or, I don't even like this colleague. What shall I do? And they can coach you through it and help you to empower yourself to make your own decisions. And I think depends on the individual. Like some people might understand that grasp quite quicker than others. But I think within a workplace, when the environment is right, then my productivity will increase because I don't want to find myself like not feeling competent enough to do a job. Like that is probably one of my worst fears, getting into a job, making so many mistakes, everybody thinking, oh, she can't do it because she's neurodivergent or, because she's Indian. I don't know. Like it depends how deep you want to go. Like, but I just feel like I know when the environment is right, and I know there's only through undergrad that I can do jobs competently. And when the environment isn't right, you can see the decline of an individual. And I think having a workplace that will support that will definitely help an employee to feel not only like an employee, but like a human, like who's able, like, I want to be in a job where the way I am right now on this webinar, I don't want to feel I have to like sit and be like this or like, I can't even explain it because I haven't been in a job, but this is how I would want to be. And I think colleagues, employers, the boss, I think all have an integral. I think they're more important than they seem, I would say.
Amazing. Thanks. That's
I
great.
hope that
Thanks a
answered the
lot.
question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for that, Ruben. That was really, really good insight. And I guess we've got a bit of time now for Q&A. If anybody would like to put any questions into the live chat, we do have one question that has come through specifically for you, Ruben, which will be, which is I guess around sensitive questions within job applications. So in particular around sexuality, religion, background. How do you feel about those questions when you're looking to submit applications? That's come through from Daniel.
That is quite. I did see that question earlier, and I was thinking, how am I going to answer that? It's a deep question. Like, I think it depends maybe on the industry if they need to know the answer to the question, but I think I don't know. Like, maybe I would have reservations of if I didn't get a job, is it because I was Indian or, because if I state that I'm neurodivergent, did I get that because they were neurodivergent positive or I don't know. There's so many things and there are things I don't want to think about of why I didn't get a job, if that makes sense. So I think to answer the question diplomatically, I would say more clarity in why they might need that. Because if you actually think about it, why do companies need to know that in a way? Like, we are all different. Like, of course, you're going to have a black person at a job, or, it literally doesn't matter, is what I'm trying to get across. Like, unless there's an example and I can't think of it where it is necessary to know, then I feel like, why do they need to know? Like, I don't know. I really hope that answered the question. I've probably gone off on a tangent, to be honest.
No, that's great. Thanks, Matt, Sue, or Rob. Have you got any insight or any thoughts around this particular question?
I would say in terms of why perhaps that they need to know, need is probably in most cases the wrong word. I think want and desire to know is probably more relevant. And it's basically to provide an opportunity to better our processes and make sure that we're tracking things like diversity, the level of which it needs to be appropriate for the purpose, but it makes sure that we are not excluding anybody from recruitment processes, that there's no bias in there, and that we are getting good representation of the population as a whole. So I wouldn't say that all of those questions are always needed. I would say be selective, use it for a purpose, but they are very helpful in monitoring and making sure that you stay true to a goal of providing an inclusive environment as an employer.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Sue. Matt, have you got anything else to add, or Rob, on that at all?
It was just no, totally support Sue's point, and I think my only stance was around sort of clarity around that. So obviously the explanation that Sue's provided, like if that's provided to your applicant, so they understand the reason why, and they also know that they're not required to give an answer. If they want to click prefer not to say, that's absolutely fine. So I think for me, I think it's around the clarity of the information, any information, sensitive information. It's all around the clarity and making sure there's purpose behind it as well, and organisations are able to then articulate that purpose to their candidates.
Thanks, Matt. So I think that's it for the questions. So we'll look to wrap up now. So thank you to all of our amazing panelists today, to Rob, Matt, Sue, and Roman. Some really good insights there, and yeah, a lot of love and support for you, Roman, in terms of your honesty and your opinion. So thanks a lot for your time today. We do hope you've all come away with this webinar with a lot of insights that you can go away back to your organisations and to act upon. Big thank you to Amberjack, who have partnered with Springpod for this research and the webinar series. The full report is available now, so make sure you download it so you can look back through those insights that Rob shared, and any takeaways too. The webinar has been recorded, so do feel free to share it with your colleagues, and thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of your week.